Hey everybody, welcome back to Art by Galen. I'm Galen Eilenfeld, and today we're going to be covering how to draw and paint metallic and reflective surfaces. Before we jump too far into drawing the metallic and reflective surfaces, let's first go over a little bit of other types of surfaces. And I've got three of those outlined here, reflective being on the right, which is what we're going to learn how to do today. But it's important to understand the differences between the reflective surface and the other types. You can exaggerate those differences to suit your needs for whatever type of artwork you're producing. Starting off on the left, we've got a flat sphere. Now with a flat texture, you'll notice that there are no major reflections. You will get some ambient reflections kind of happening down in this lower edge, but it'll be very subtle depending on the lighting. The light and shadows will be very simple. It's going to have a decreased value range. And what I mean by that, if you think of the range from white to black and all of the different gray tones in between, you can give either one a number. But if you give, for instance, white the value of 0 and black the value of 100, the value range is whatever section within that 0 to 100 that this is. So, for instance, while the reflective surface on the right is going to have a full value range going from black to white, but this flat surface on the left only has a value range of about 60%. It doesn't go all the way to white and it doesn't go all the way to black, and most of the tones are in the middle section, that middle 60%. With the glossy surface, the light and shadow gets a little bit more complex. The value range increases. It doesn't go completely 100%, but it goes closer to that. You see we've got an almost white highlight and a very dark gray shadow that starts, popping up around the edge. We also have some subtle reflections that happen on these lower edges because the glossier or the shinier a surface gets, the more of that ambient light that it's actually going to pick up and reflect at you. You'll notice one of the main differences in the glossy surface from the flat surface is this really harsh highlight that we have here. And this is one of the key characteristics of a glossy surface, is that you will have sharp highlights like this. You can tell real easily if I take that away, this all of a sudden becomes a very matte, flat looking surface. But if we put that highlight back on there, it looks smoother and polished, or almost even wet, like a wet surface would have a similar highlight. You'll also notice that with the highlight, it's almost white and it is very sharp and refined. It's not dull and blended out. It is generally going to be in the shape of whatever the light source is. And like if we call it the sun or if we call it a light bulb, it's normally going to be fairly round in shape. Now with the reflective surface, we take it a step farther. We've got detailed reflections. You're going to actually see reflections of whatever scenery that this surface might be in. Now I'm using spheres here as a complex example, but it would work similarly with other shapes. The light and shadow is also complex because you've not only got a reflection of the area on the surface, you have general highlights and shadows that would happen as well, and these are kind of working together. You're going to have a more full value range, and you're generally going to have a really focused highlight, similar to the glossy one, but even more so. You'll also notice that these outer reflections follow more of the entire shape as opposed to being more of a light reflection that you would get from the surface. All of these are meant to look as if they're sitting on a table of some sort, and this glossy one gets a reflection of the surface up onto the bottom edge. This one is going to get a reflection of pretty much everything. But anyway, these are some of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're drawing these kind of surfaces. And one other thing you want to keep in mind is the pattern of the reflection. Like, for instance, with a sphere, I have this grid drawn out. So, for instance, if I had, like, this was my horizon, and then I had a big building over here, and then they went back to the horizon, the way that I would implement this onto the sphere is looking at my grid. So, if my horizon is this blue line, but the center of the image is here, where I've got these, thicker red lines. Okay, so this would be the center. So I know my horizon would come down below that, and it's going to need to follow in this curvature. So I know that my horizon would sit about like that. My building starts here in this second one and comes up. It would curve as it comes upward. It goes through that center line and up past the first one about halfway, and then comes over. The top of it would curve following this line, and then the right side of that building would curve and come back down. And so from there, I could come in and build my silhouette of whatever the reflection is. While the reflections follow a spherical grid for this, it will do something entirely different. Let's say if we're doing more like a cylinder, like a metallic pipe or something like that. Obviously the shape is going to be pretty simple. The shape is just going to be very literally just a cylinder. Let me come in a little closer on this here. So we'll make one like this, and then we'll do another one and turn it this way. Now the way these work are going to be fairly similar, only the reflections will be heavily distorted because of the elongated shape. And this will happen with lots of different reflective surfaces. It's going to distort depending on the shape and the curvature of the surface. With a pipe, it's pretty easy. Like it basically grabs a section of the reflection. There will be like a dark area here that might be from a tree or from a building or something like that. And then there's another slight dark area, and then there's another dark one here, and then we'll have a light area here. This might be the sky or a lamp or something like that, or your light in your bedroom. And then we might have another one from the window. And then maybe this is where the window is like shining on the wall. Now, when you're doing reflections on a cylinder, it basically takes a section of a reflection, typically whatever it is perpendicular to, it'll grab the most light from that because that's what it's going to be hitting more directly. And so it takes that and then it just elongates it through the entire length of the piece. And you'll get a little bit of blurring in it, but not a ton. So you'll get it kind of like that. And then now I'm just darkening this up so you can see it a little bit better on this background. One thing we didn't do is the sharper highlight. Like wherever the brightest point is where you're going to get most of the that sharp white highlight. Then you'll have the reflective lights from whatever surfaces are around. And that gives you that kind of a chrome pipe, if you will. Now, if we take that same pipe and we were to turn it horizontally, you're going to get a much different reflection, because here it's taking a section this way and elongating it, but here you're going to get more of a distorted horizontal reflection, more of a horizon reflection, similar to how the sphere does. It's going to be elongated this way. Like if we had a flat horizon, it would be a flat line. And even if it's not, on a pipe or on a cylinder laid sideways, it's going to end up becoming a flat line for the most part. It might have a little variance to it, but it won't be much. And after that would come the sky. Maybe a little light on the underside if there was any reflecting going on at the bottom, and another series of shadow from where it's laying on the ground, because it will also be reflecting the ground or whatever surface it's on. And then we'd come back in with the with that sharp white highlight, and it would be more like that. For a more practical, like art approach, let's say we're trying to do some armor. Everybody loves characters with nice shiny reflective armor on. So let's say we're doing a shoulder piece. Like if this were like, let's say if this here were the neck area, these were the shoulders, arms would come down like so. We need a piece that's going to cover the upper part of the arm and come over and protect the top of the shoulder. What we're going to do is kind of draw out a shape for that piece of armor. And it can just be a big silhouette. We want it to kind of come down, have a little lip on it, come up, and then round out as it comes up onto the shoulder. We want this to be more smooth. And then it will cut off here and then come back down and connect. So we'll do it about like that. So we've got kind of the rough shape of an armor piece that we're going to use. And so the first thing we want to do is establish the overall shape of it. And we can use some subtle highlights or even just some lines to come in and define that shape. Like I want this lip to go all the way around the bottom. And then we know that this portion is going to be a lot like a cylinder because it's just going to be a curved piece of metal that would wrap around the arm. This portion is going to be somewhat spherical because that's where it's going to round over. And then we'll come back into a little sliver up top, which will be sort of like this lower section, which is more cylindrical. So now we understand kind of the basic shape of it. We need to establish where the primary light source is going to be coming from. And then just for sake of simplicity, I'm going to say this is coming from the top left side. And so the lightest area will be here. And then because of this lip, we know that this will catch some light. There will be some highlights here, but they won't be as strong as they will in these sections. I'm going to switch to a smoother brush and do some roughing in of these tones. So these three sections, like here, here, and here, they all turn right into each other. And so they have to be treated as, one piece versus three separate pieces. This lower section is sort of cut off, and so we can treat it a little bit more individually. Like we're going to have a sharper definition here from where this lip starts and from the main section. So if we're outside, it's going to be more of a rough kind of reflection that we have. Assuming there's trees and probably buildings and things like that. Keeping in mind the shape of the overall piece, we can start laying in, the base shadows and the base highlights that are going to be here. Here I've just got a little time lapse for you. I wanted to show you a demonstration of how you could use these techniques to develop something metallic or reflective for your own artwork. I've got some other photo examples that I'd like to show you. Here is a piece of art. I don't own any of these images. I'm just using them for demonstration purposes. This is a highly reflective surface, like a mirror reflective surface. You can see the details in everything, and the distortion comes in, very heavily. You can see it pretty easily, especially if you start looking at the patterns in the bricks and everything. This is another type of polished metal, just it's more orange and brown colored because it's copper. Here we've got a plain gold ring. Now this might be a computer render, but it still gets the point across that you're going to see, like you'll notice this is very flat on the inside, but it's got a curved outer portion, so you're going to get different types of reflections. Like on the inside, you're going to get more cylinder style reflections. On the outside, you're going to get a little bit of both. You're going to get some spherical and some cylinder style reflections on this. Here's another true cylinder just from a metal pipe with some threading. Here we've got another ring where on the inside is smooth and flat. We've got that cylindrical effect. The outer side, we have the similar thing. Like we've got, the darker areas and the lighter areas just like we do on the inside. But because of this kind of loose hammered texture, it's off. It's not perfect. It's a little bit more distorted and kind of wavy looking. Here we have more metallic spheres, but these aren't polished. These are very rough, and the reflections aren't near as detailed as they would be in the earlier one that we saw that was more mirror finish. You can simulate this just by simply, smudging around your reflections a little bit, or if you're painting it from scratch, just don't detail it very much at all. You still want to include the colors of your environment. Like you can see the color from, like there's kind of a yellow color here, which what I would assume is either the flash or a window, and then we've got a more blue one, which could be a light, or it could be, that could be the window with the color of the sky coming through, and then you see little colors like from his hand being picked up in this one. And you're going to get that, but it's just not going to be that mirror reflection. It's going to be very rough, and you'll still have a lot of natural color from the metal itself. But anyhow, I want to thank you for taking the time to hang out with me and watch this tutorial. If you found it helpful, please hit that like button below. If you're new to this channel and you enjoy this content, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and also ring that bell icon down below, because YouTube doesn't always let you know when I put up new content. But if you ring that bell icon, it'll notify you with every new video that goes up. Anyhow, I hope you're having a fantastic day, and until next time, keep creating and take care.